YouTube. And let's just make sure that our Instagram family is connected. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Okay, there we go. All right, IG family, how are ya? All right, y'all. So while the IG family gets connected and gets alerted, let's kick this off. Welcome back to the Productive Soul, a Productive Soul conversation specifically about goal setting, annual planning, personal goal setting, um, all those things that are related to you being your best annually, right? Or in this year to come. So, we good over here? All right, so let's address this as the year ends. You got about less than a couple weeks before the year ends. It's just like a, to that whole thing. It's like a unsettling feeling, the fact that the year is just about to wrap up, right? So anyway, so let's talk about this. There's three things, actually four, that I want to address and empower you with when it comes to setting your goals for this next year to come, right? So there's four things that we're going to need. One, make sure I wrote this down actually. You're going to need a coach. Okay, that's the first thing. Now, I want to clarify who this conversation is for. So, I think egoically, it's hard for us to accept that in a lot of ways that we're average, right? If someone's like, hey, are you average? Are you not average? I think, there's an unsettling feeling that the answer to that question is like, yeah, I am average. And even if we don't want to accept it, what we would humbly kind of like do if someone were to show us a scoreboard of, life accomplishments or achievements of our cohort, right? People who are in our sort of age bracket or age group, right? And say, well, here's this on the spectrum of achievement. Here's where the top, 5% or 10% or top 15% are. And here's where you stand, right? We would then have to like reconcile and embrace the fact that in some ways that we're average. And like I said, it's it's an egoic kind of punch to the stomach because nobody wants to look in the mirror and be like, yeah, I'm average, right? Nobody enjoys that, right? So that being said, what are we going to do about that, right? What can be done about this reality, this kind of fact that we're in the middle, right? We're in the average range of results or average range of outcomes or average range of life situation or life circumstance. Am I making sense? Okay. So if you don't want to be average, right? Like you don't want to be an average basketball player or you're an average hockey player or average artist or average whatever the thing is, computer programmer. What are the X factors to get to the next level, whatever that next level is for you? Well, if you're really open and you're honest, coaching, right? When if you have a child that plays a sport and you want them to, improve, what do? You send them to a camp, right? Take them to a camp, maybe a few camps over the course of a summer, right? And at that camp, there are coaches, counselors. You see the thread here? So improved performance, the path to improved performance is concentration on the skill sets that you need to be better. And that can only come from concentrated attention from someone the equivalent of a coach or a mentor that guides and coaches you through these areas where you are average. Right? So what this is preparing you for, if you're taking this seriously, is to think about in this next year, depending on what it is that you want to accomplish and in what areas you want to accomplish it in, you have to ask yourself, if I don't hire a coach or enter some sort of arrangement where there's coaching happening, what could I expect as far as the results that I want for myself or my life in this area that I say is important to me, that I really want to see some things happening? Right? Can you improve? Yeah, sure. Right? But the consistency of that improvement is all tied to someone who is deliberately paying attention and being intentional with you to help you get to whatever that next level is. Right? Okay. The second thing for goal setting going into this year is kind of goes with the coaching, but it's community. And what I mean by community, it could be something as simple as 2 or 3 other people, or maybe one other person, at the very least one other person. But in some group environment, group circumstance or situation that you put yourself in, where there's a certain amount of achievement or commitment to achievement that's happening at the same time while you're working on what you're working on. Okay? So, community. Community, that means also people are cheering you on. People are checking in with you, supporting you in your cause, challenging you by their own results or their own performance, right? It's an environment where there's checking in, there's, of course, coaching in there, there's challenging, there's supporting, right? And by default, there's a certain amount of accountability there. So if you really want to ask yourself, based on what you set your heart and your mind on to accomplish in this next year, how will you accomplish that without a community of people who really care enough about you and care enough about you enough to care enough about the results being accomplished or reached or secured? How far can you go? Right? So if you look at whatever your goals have been and how far you've gotten so far without, so if you think about it, okay, you've gotten maybe far, kind of, sort of, without coaching. Maybe you've gotten kind of far, kind of, sort of, without community. And that's great. So now, if you've done well, not only allow yourself to imagine what's possible if you were to permit yourself to get guidance, get coaching, and plug into a community of individuals or coaches that really care about the outcomes and the results that you want to accomplish and that you want to reach. Right? What's possible? Something to think about. Third thing in this new way of being able to reach your goals this next year, setting your goals and reaching them this next year, is a course correction system. So one of the things that happens is, you know how it is, you're trying to get somewhere, you're trying to do something, it falls apart, doesn't work out the way you thought it was going to work out on any given day while you said, hey, I'm going to lose X amount of weight, or hey, I'm going to go to the gym X amount of times, or hey, I'm going to start eating this way, or hey, I'm going to start paying more attention to my money, or hey, I'm going to start visiting family a little bit more, whatever the thing is, right? On the personal side. And then work-wise, hey, I think I'm going to take this certification this year. hey, I think, I'm going to ask for that raise, or hey, I'm going to apply for that promotion, because I always, anytime a promotion comes up, I really just dismiss it, right? All those things. So what happens when you are, starting to strive towards these goals is it's like supposedly an aircraft is off course, right? Some correction of the time. I mean, some period of the time, right? And you have to do what's referred to as cribbing, I believe, right? Where it's like as it flies and it's kind of like moves off course, it has to kind of get back, and it's moves off course, and it's got to get back on course until it gets approximate enough to the destination to then tune in and zone in and focus in and get everything all working to get to the destination, right? So a lot of times we're kind of blown off course day after day, or week after week, or some weeks more than others. And we never really quite recover, and we never really correct, right? Like we never really get to that place where we feel like, okay, we're still on the path. And then what we do is that we kind of end up adjusting, feeling some kind of way about the fact that we're not on course, and in a way starting to forget what the original idea or the goal or the intention was. And then we kind of let ourselves off the hook, right? You know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay. So these 3 C's, coaching, community, and course correction systems, are super valuable and super important to have, right? And this is not to discourage you from setting goals. You're more than welcome and entitled to set whatever goals you wish, whatever goals you want. But if this year is going to be a different year, if this year is going to be the year where, wait till they get a load of me, right? Kind of attitude and spirit, right? Something different has to happen, has to be. And that something different can be the identification and the securing of a coach, the connection and the plugging in, the partnering it up with a community, and the tools that constitute a course correction system, right? Now, this is not to take away from this whole notion of setting SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, attainable. I forgot what's the R in SMART. Specific, measurable, attainable, reachable, and then time sensitive, something like that, right? Now I gotta make sure I look it up the way that it's defined. All right. So SMART, specific. Let's look it up. I'm sure one of you guys will probably put it in the comments, right? Okay. All right. So here's. Oh, the R I think is reasonable. Yeah. Yeah. That's what it was. Yeah, realistic. Okay. That was the only one I didn't catch. All right. So yeah, specific, measurable. I said attainable, but achievable, attainable. I think it's synonymous. And then realistic, right? And time bound. All right. So you can have these SMART goals, right? But the thing is, a coach, a community, and a course correction system is what allows you to stay true to the SMART goal. And I think we can get deluded in thinking like, well, I set my goals for the year. I know what I'm going to get done. But the thing is, man, life hits you in the face. Life punches you. things, fall apart in different directions. What you thought was going to be, happening in February didn't happen. The promotion you thought was coming in February didn't come until, or maybe it's indefinite, or they don't have budget for that new position, or whatever it is, right? Like course correction. And so systems wise, when it comes down to it, I think when you look on a day-to-day basis, there's something that you're using that you got to capture the action in, right? I talked about my 24-hour blueprint planner. People use sometimes, week at a glance, and what are the other kind of common, circa, calendars and planners and things like this. And with the 24-hour blueprint, right, what I, recognize, because I've been exactly where I'm describing that I've been telling you about, where I realize like, if I don't have some way of kind of looking and evaluating my own actions and my own behavior and how it's influencing my actions, I don't have a way to correct myself from week to week or month to month or quarter to quarter, right? And so what's been done is it's been created. See if I can. I mean, there's of course steps to this whole thing, right? But from the daily worksheet, and I'll do some reels on this. I'm going to grab an example of one of my worksheets here. So I'll give you one. I'll give you this example, right? In this black and white version of it. Okay, see this? You guys see? You see this sheet? So this sheet here, for example, is the end of the week sheet that you get to check off a score, right? A score of how you did based on 5 kingdoms, right? And you guys have heard me talk about this. And then when you get that score, you kind of are able to look and say, all right, I scored a 3 this week, or 3.2, or whatever the thing is. And you get to look at the week before, and you can make corrections to improve that score. So now you're kind of like holding yourself accountable. You become almost like a self-sufficient community, at least while you're figuring out whether you want to get coaching, or whether you want to plug into a community, right? Like at the very least, you have the keys to your own personal domain to be able to see improvement, right? And the way that the sheets are set up, they're really set up for you to be clear, so that you're not kidding yourself and you're not, under some delusional situation where you're like, oh, well, I think I'm making progress. No, each and every day you're able to actually see in real time whether or not you are moving in the direction you want to move in, and what corrections you should be making or can be making, right? It's a whole thing. That's why I started doing this, or offering workshops, right? So for those of you who this is and of course you're seeing this end of the year, or even if you're seeing it anytime during the year, the whole thing here is you got to plug yourself in. You got to set yourself up to genuinely win, to really secure the trophy of victory for you, whatever that looks like, right? And again, this is specific to anyone who's kind of realizing that there's ways that they're just average. And not because you're bad or you're evil. It's just because the push isn't there, right? And so if you really want your, backhand to improve, if you're a tennis player, right, you got to get someone to help you work on that. So whatever it is that you do that sabotages you, you got to get coaching to help you through that. It's as simple as that, right? And so this is really, again, for the conversation for people who are like, yeah, I've seen myself kind of like be in these, spectrums of average. I feel like I'm getting better, but I always feel like I'm always back down in the middle. Definitely, I need this. So if that's of interest to you, of course, take a look in the bio. There is, or in the description section, there's a link that'll take you to registering for an upcoming workshop, so you can really get help with understanding this framework, right? This framework where there's coaching, there's community, there's a course correction system, which is your planner. Your planner should be your course correction system. And if your planner doesn't help you course correct, you got to get a new planner. Right? Make sense? So that's really it for this productive soul conversation that I wanted to have. If it's, of course, been beneficial for you, share it with others. Pass it along to people who need to hear it or need to be reminded of it. If it's very sobering, I completely understand, because, like I said, egoically, we don't want to be average, right? But in order to not be average, build a better calendar workshop, right? Because a better you gives you the opportunity to have a better year. And that better you comes from coaching, a community, and course correction systems. Okay. All right, guys. Thanks a lot. And I'll see you guys soon.